Right now, you will probably live into your 70s, maybe your 80s. You might complain about getting older, about bad knees, gray hair, or slower recovery after a bad night of sleep. But the version of you that existed 50,000 years ago would have considered your life almost incomprehensibly long. For most of human history, people did not grow old. They just stopped. And the strange part is not that ancient humans died young. The strange part is why. Because when most people imagine prehistoric death, they picture violence, a mammoth stomping someone flat, a rival tribe attacking at dawn, a cave bear, and a bad decision. And yes, those things happened, but they were not the main reason ancient humans died young. The real reasons are quieter, more invisible, and in some ways far more disturbing. So what actually killed ancient humans? Let's start by throwing out the number most people have heard. You have probably seen the statistic that average life expectancy in prehistory was around 30 or 35 years. And that sounds horrifying until you understand what that number actually means. Average life expectancy is dragged down hard by childhood death. If half the children in a population die before age 5, the average life expectancy of that group collapses, even if the adults who survive childhood live into their 50s or 60s. So ancient humans were not all dropping dead at 35. Some lived long lives, but most children never got the chance to find out. And that is where the first killer lives: childhood. Before clean water, before sanitation, before anyone understood what bacteria was, being a child was one of the most dangerous things a human could be. Diarrheal disease alone may have killed more prehistoric children than almost anything else. A child's body dehydrates fast. Without any way to replace fluids or fight infection, something as ordinary as a stomach bug could kill a 2-year-old in days. Then there was the birth itself. Giving birth in the ancient world was one of the most dangerous events in a human life. No sterile tools, no trained medical staff, no way to intervene if something went wrong. The baby positioned incorrectly, bleeding that would not stop, infection that set in days later. Mothers died, newborns died, and sometimes both died together. Researchers who study ancient skeletal remains find something consistent across prehistoric populations: a massive spike in deaths among women in their late teens and 20s, the years when they were most likely to be giving birth. That spike does not exist in men of the same age. The leading explanation is childbirth. But let's say you made it past childhood. Let's say you survived being born, survived your first years, and grew into a functional adult. You were not safe yet, because the second killer was something your immune system had never encountered before. Ancient humans lived in small, mobile groups, typically between 20 and 150 people. That actually protected them from some diseases. A pathogen that spreads through dense populations, the kind that needs thousands of bodies close together to keep circulating, could not easily survive in a band of 40 hunters moving across a landscape. But that protection had a price. Their immune systems were not trained for what happened when groups met. When two bands of humans crossed paths, they exchanged more than goods and stories. They exchanged microbes. Pathogens that one group had developed partial resistance to could devastate another group with no exposure history at all. And then there were the parasites. Ancient humans lived close to animals, walked barefoot through soil full of larvae, drank from the same water sources as the animals they hunted. Intestinal parasites were not occasional, they were constant. Researchers examining preserved prehistoric remains, including ancient feces found at archaeological sites, have found evidence of multiple parasite species living inside nearly every individual they have studied. You did not have a parasite, you had a collection. Those parasites drained nutrition, they caused chronic inflammation, they wore the body down quietly over years, making every other threat harder to survive. But there is a third killer that most people never think about: teeth. This sounds almost funny until you understand what a dental infection meant before antibiotics. Your teeth are not isolated. They sit above a direct pathway to your bloodstream, your jaw, your sinuses, and your brain. A cracked tooth that gets infected does not stay a tooth problem. It becomes a jaw infection, then a blood infection. Then, without treatment, it becomes the thing that kills you. Ancient diets, especially after humans began eating more grains, were brutal on teeth. Grit from grinding stones got mixed into food. Tough raw plant fibers wore enamel down. Sugars from fruit and honey fed bacteria. Anthropologists examining prehistoric skulls consistently find severe dental decay, abscesses, and bone loss around infected teeth. And there was no treatment, no extraction done cleanly, no antibiotics waiting on the other side. An infected molar in the ancient world was a countdown. Then there was injury, and this one does match the dramatic version, just not the way people expect. Ancient humans were not dying primarily in battles or predator attacks, though both happened. They were dying from injuries that would be trivially survivable today. A broken leg that healed wrong and became infected, a deep cut from a stone tool that never closed properly, a puncture wound from a hunting accident that festered over 2 weeks. Researchers have found prehistoric skeletons with evidence of injuries that the individual survived for weeks or months before dying. The injury itself did not kill immediately, the slow infection afterward did. And layered underneath all of this was something even more fundamental: nutrition. Ancient humans were not always starving. Hunter-gatherer diets at their best were actually varied and dense in nutrition, but they were also completely dependent on the environment. A bad season, a drought, a migration that moved the herd somewhere else, and suddenly an entire group was running on almost nothing.
Starvation does not just kill directly. It collapses the immune system. It stops wound healing. It makes every other threat dramatically more lethal. A parasite load that a well-fed body might manage becomes overwhelming when the body has no resources left to fight back. Researchers can actually read nutritional stress in ancient bones. When the body is starving during childhood, bone growth slows or stops entirely. That pause leaves a visible line in the bone, called the Harris line, like a ring in a tree. Prehistoric skeletons are full of them. Some individuals show multiple Harris lines, meaning they nearly starved, recovered, nearly starved again, recovered again, and kept going. Their whole childhood written into their bones in a language of crisis and survival. So here's the full picture. Ancient humans were not killed by one dramatic thing. They were worn down by an accumulation of invisible, relentless threats. Childhood infections, difficult births, parasites, tooth decay that spread to the blood, injuries that modern medicine would fix in an afternoon, and underneath all of it, a food supply that could vanish without warning. The individuals who survived childhood, avoided fatal injury, kept their teeth from killing them, and managed to stay fed long enough were the ones who lived into old age. And some of them did. We have skeletal evidence of individuals in their 50s and 60s in prehistoric populations. They were not common, but they existed. What they represent is something almost remarkable, a human body fighting off everything the ancient world could throw at it, with nothing except the immune system, the group, and whatever knowledge had been passed down around a fire. You live in a world built specifically to eliminate nearly every threat on that list: clean water, germ theory, antibiotics, surgical tools, dental care, a food supply that does not disappear when it rains wrong. Every single one of those things came from someone, somewhere, figuring out what was actually killing people and finding a way to stop it. So the next time you take an antibiotic, drink clean water from a tap, or sit in a dentist's chair complaining about how much you hate being there, remember what the alternative looked like. It looked like a Harris line in a child's bone, a cracked tooth counting down, a cut that never quite closed. It looked like a life that was often brutal, sometimes extraordinary, and almost always shorter than it should have been.